Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I am here with my friend Melanie Porras. Melanie is a holistic herbalist with a focus in menstruating systems. So we are going to actually cover a topic that I haven't covered before on this channel, which is menstruation. And this video is going to be about menstruating bodies and plant medicine. But we're gonna do another one that's on monster periods, which is referred to as hypermenorrhea. So please stay tuned for that one as well.
The following video is made for the purpose of education and harm reduction. We are not promoting the use, procurement, or possession of any plant medicine or substance. We encourage everyone to do further research and prioritize safety.
And if you're new to the channel, welcome. We are a realm of sacred plant medicine and psychedelics, all about demystifying and destigmatizing the trip. If you get a kick out of this video today, please be sure to subscribe to this channel. You can also check me out on Instagram and TikTok at @Chrysanthus. You can find Melanie on Instagram at melanie.bodies. You can also find her ebook, The Cycle Within, in her IG bio.
This channel was made possible by contributions from Patreon patrons and subscribers like you. Thank you.
Melanie, thank you so much for joining us here today.
I am excited to be on this channel.
Yes.
A big fan.
We're excited to have you.
Yay.
So Melanie and I recently actually just met, like this summer. She followed me on IG and I followed her back immediately. And I was like, this person looks amazing. And then we hung out and we went to a museum one day. And then we met up at the Oakland Psychedelic Conference afterwards.
Yes, that was really fun. I couldn't believe that. I was like, I know you. You're familiar.
Yeah, we just ran into each other there, which was wild. So today, what kind of plant medicines are we going to be talking about?
Well, I think when I think of plant medicines, it can kind of be all plants, right? So like chamomile, plants, like yarrow, different categories. But we can talk about plants that can support your nervous system, plants that help with mood and your mood support, plants that can kind of regulate too much bleeding, plants that can also bring on menstruation. And then obviously included into those plants is my work. I talk a lot about cannabis and psilocybin. So we can definitely go over that too, because I think that is really important for mental health around our period.
And I think that a lot of the good people of this channel, a lot of my subscribers would be interested in that part.
We can do
especially.
Yeah. Do more of a focus on that.
Melanie actually makes beautiful and informative videos on her Instagram. One of your videos states that, quote, "The health of our menstrual cycle is a reflection of our environment." So, could we talk a bit about that before we dive into the specific plant allies that can help us with the struggles our menstrual cycles bring?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about that recently, so it works perfect. So when we think of our menstrual cycle, we often don't look at it as a vital sign. We just live our life, know we bleed, and that's it. But what we don't realize is that the lack of bleeding, the amount of pain, and if we bleed too much, can all be a reflection of other things going on in our environment. So that can be stress, that can be diet, not getting enough food, the right food, or having too much of the wrong food. And then that can be, your physical, how your physical health is. So all of that can be reflected in the health of our menstrual cycle. And either you get your period and you're struggling a lot with depression, struggling a lot with mood, then there are other imbalances in your outer world that are causing internal imbalances. So we can really use our period as a sign to kind of check in on where we're at and where we've been. But that is that's a grand comment or broad comment, because there are other things that can affect the severity of someone's cycle.
What are some of the other factors that can affect the severity of cycle? Can genetics play a role in it, and how much of a role do you think genetics can play? I know people who come from like heavy period families, you know.
Yeah, it can be genetics. It can also just be hormone imbalances. Usually a lot of the issues that we have around our period is rooted in our hormones, and the goal is to how do we get those hormones back into balance. So higher levels of estrogen can trigger an early period, can trigger painful breasts, can trigger painful periods, even having low amounts of that, and having and then same with progesterone. As we go through our cycle, these hormones are increasing and decreasing, and that we have to make sure that our body's responding correctly to these fluctuations. Now they're finding that gut integrity, your gut microbiome, which is something that can be affected when we are children, infants in the womb. So making sure we have a healthy ecosystem in our gut, because in our gut we have what is known as a strobilome, which is specific bacteria that breaks down and regulates estrogen. So if we have an imbalance of that can also contribute to estrogen being either too much estrogen or too little. And then how our body is responding. Everybody is so unique. It's really, and it's a journey for a person to go through to find out what works for them. So it's a journey, but with the right support system, I think in community we can get the support we need in finding out solutions. Did I answer?
Hell yeah. Yes, and I especially wanted to touch on this topic because I know I have a bunch of menstruating viewers. I myself have really struggled with menstruation. I got my period at a pretty early age, and my solution, we'll talk about it in the other video, but my solution is like not to have a period, and I want to explore the options for people who still want their period and want to build a better relationship with their period, you know, because it's a spectrum. So I have a microdosing series on this channel where we've done like 5 or 6 videos so far talking about microdosing. But can we touch really quickly on microdosing on your period, cannabis, mushrooms? What's the effect?
So this is really fun for me. When it comes to microdosing, people are microdosing, specifically with psilocybin, people are microdosing for their anxiety or depression around their period. And in our period, throughout our cycle, we have a flux of estrogen and progesterone, and both of those hormones affect expression of serotonin. And as we talked about, gut affects serotonin, and serotonin is what are happy chemicals. But also, I dove into the rabbit hole and found that estrogen also affects monoamine oxidase enzymes, and these enzymes degrade neurotransmitters like serotonin. So estrogen specifically will decrease activity of MAO enzymes, which increases serotonin. And progesterone will actually increase MAO enzymes, which increases the breakdown of serotonin. So,
and a side note, a lot of times when people are on birth control, they're taking estrogen and progesterone, right?
Yeah. So how people have implemented their microdose or cannabis around their period, and this is from my personal experience, I would take it prior to menstruation, and because I would struggle a lot with depression and anxiety, but mainly depression right before my cycle, and I looked at it as something that's kind of balancing how my body is responding to these chemical shifts. But what I noticed is after working with plants and being able to address these symptoms, I went from having breakdowns around my period to breakthroughs, because I was able to actually dive into the energetics of what my period felt like, because I was no longer in pain. I was mentally no longer feeling incapable of doing my day-to-day, which allowed that numbing dissociation feeling to alleviate before my period. So people will supplement it with as an antidepressant. Microdosing, I'm sure you've heard a bunch about microdosing and what that looks like, and the amount that you take, but people will only take it just before your period. But yeah, that's kind of like the rundown and the science of how that works. But again, that is just an option for a symptom, and then that there is always a root cause, and it's exploring what the root cause is and what your unique not issue, but imbalance is, and that will also kind of help the bigger picture.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you for explaining that. Can you speak a bit to the effects of microdosing cannabis around your period?
Yeah, so cannabis, I use cannabis as a broad term because we have hemp that's part of the cannabis family, and there's different cannabinoids that you can work with, like CBD or THC. There's also been interesting fact that our hormones also affect the breakdown of naturally occurring endocannabinoids in our system by increasing or decreasing 𝐴 activity, which is very similar to MAO enzymes, except 𝐴 enzymes break down endocannabinoids. And some people feel that certain stages in their cycle that either THC tolerance is a little bit lower or higher. But as far as the effects is, mood support, reducing pain, specifically CBD too is great for this, because they can they inhibit prostaglandins, which is what causes cramping in our uterus, and sometimes too many prostaglandins causes extreme cramping. But people will also work with these plants in synergy, so with their hormones. So psilocybin, if they know that when estrogen is increasing and these enzymes that usually break down neurotransmitters are lower, they will actually work with psilocybin to kind of have that like entourage effect with their period. So instead of taking an MAO inhibitor, you just work with your own hormones, which is kind of very magical about being born in a body like ours.
I want to do a rapid fire really quick. So I could give you a menstruation symptom and you could let me know what plant could help.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's start out with good old-fashioned cramps.
So you can do CBD, you can do cannabis, you can work with skullcap, any plant that's antispasmodic. So antispasmodic plants, perfect. That's the action you're looking for.
Okay, wonderful. Mood stabilization.
So you're gonna want to work with hormone regulators, modulators, like chastity berry is one of them, or white peony.
How about folks who are having issues with their sleep on their period?
Yeah, obviously cannabis and CBD can be really good for relaxing the nervous system. You can work with chamomile, lavender, passion flower, anything that's going to be very like a sedative.
How about stress/anxiety during your period? I know those levels can be a bit elevated.
So working with nervines like chamomile and lavender can also address those issues too. Adaptogens are also great. So adaptogens is like reishi mushroom, ashwagandha, holy basil/tulsi. Those are great to work with.
So what if somebody is under bleeding or not bleeding enough during their period in their minds, like they feel like they're not bleeding enough?
Plans to kind of bring on your period or help with a congested or just stagnant period or bleeding process can be emmenagogues. So motherwort is one of my favorite emmenagogues.
And for most of these, can we tea them?
tea them, sometimes tincturing you might have to do, or capsules if you don't like either. Take them consistently.
Some of them we can smoke.
It would be better to do tinctures, teas, or capsules.
Prioritize those tinctures, teas, and capsules. Copy. And then what about, and this is a problem I had when I had a period, what about overbleeding or hypermenorrhea?
Yeah, yarrow is a great plant. I would start with yarrow.
Is yarrow a flower? Or does yarrow have a flower?
Yarrow has some flowers, yeah.
I think
herb.
I'm like picturing. Anything else you would like to add to this conversation of pairing plants with different symptoms of menstruation, or any takeaways that you would like to land on?
Yeah, just take your time, and the goal is to find your rhythm in your cycle and figure out what is out of your norm. And once you find what is not normal to you, then you have something to work with. And you can always seek help. You can always reach out to me or Chrysanthus.
Yes, and especially on that note, I want to say period pain is not normal. It is not something that vulva havers were supposed to be going through. I had very severe period pain. It's something where we want to be working with these plant allies, and we also want to be working with professionals. Period pain can be symptomatic of other more severe bodily imbalances, and it's important that we don't just treat this, but we make sure that we rule out those other imbalances. Melanie, thank you so much for visiting us today and doing this video with us. I hope y'all got a kick out of this video. If so, please subscribe to this channel. I also have a Patreon. Please check it out. I have this dope merch on my Threadless shop, and I am on Instagram and TikTok at Chrysanthus. Let me know in the comments if you have a holistic remedy for periods. I would love to hear it. You can find Melanie on Instagram at melanie.bodies. I will link it in the description, so that's a quick click. Y'all please go and follow her for more of this beautiful, wonderful information. Melanie, thank you so much for joining us today again. I seriously appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yay! I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
And yeah, that's about it. Don't forget to keep it trippy.